Hey, it's Dr. John Terry, the Black Belt Leader, and welcome to the Black Belt Leadership Podcast, where each week I'm giving you tips, tools, insights, and resources to help you become a better version of who you are and what you do as you discover, develop, and deploy your own Black Belt leader within. Hey, this week I want to talk about the Peter Principle. Now, I'm not talking about Peter from the Bible. I'm talking about a philosophy that was identified by Lawrence Peter, who is a Canadian educator, and he was a self-proclaimed hierarchologist. Several years ago, Lawrence Peter was observing a unique phenomenon that he saw happening in organizations, not only in his own country, but around the world. Now, I too have observed this very same phenomenon in my coaching and in my training with many, many organizations spanning a broad variety of different cohorts of business for years, and I've wondered why it's so prevalent. When I came across Lawrence Peter's work, I understood why. Now, the premise of his book is profound, yet it's very simple. Here's the premise of Lawrence Peter's book. In a hierarchy, in any organization, in a hierarchy, every employee tends to rise to the level of his incompetence. Now, when you go in and you read his work, The Peter Principle, here's what you find. Peter goes on to explain in the book that inside any organization, over time, individuals get promoted to positions ultimately that they are incompetent to be able to perform the required duties. Why? They lack the skill, the ability, or the working knowledge to really be successful in leading in that specific provision or the task and duties that it requires. I love what he says. He says work is accomplished by the employees who have not yet reached their level of incompetence. Now, let me give you an example of where this happens. You know, people at work demonstrate proficiency in their current position. And as a result of their success in doing what they do well, they advance within the organization, typically into a more demanding role. And if they show themselves to be proficient and diligent in that area, they're once again advanced to another position. And this happens over and over again till all of a sudden they find themselves in a position that is beyond or above their skill set or their ability. And as a result of that, they now find themselves trapped or stuck. So what's happened? The organization has self-sabotaged what was a good employee, and they've also sabotaged their organizational success in the process. Now, let me give you a practical example because I've spent a lot of time coaching and training in the financial services industry, and I've seen the Peter Principle play out in practical application time and time again in agency after agency after agency. And here's what happens. An organization hires a sales professional, and he or she becomes a star. They can sell ice to an Eskimo. He or she, that individual, is leading the organization in sales. They're breaking records, and the next thing you know, at every company event, they're the ones that are getting recognized. Well, guess what? The organization wants to replicate this individual's success. So what do? They promote their star salesperson to sales manager, but they do so without giving any thought into whether or not this individual is capable of leading others or even has the skill or capacity to step into a leadership role. And as a result, what happened? Sales drop. Why? The star salesperson is no longer selling. The star of the company, their best sales professional, is now sitting behind a desk and he's no longer belly to belly meeting with customers. So what's happened? He or she, whoever this individual is, ends up ineffectively managing a team of mediocre sales professionals who lack the skill, the talent, or the ability to replicate what their number one star salesperson could do on his or her own. And the end result is what? Rather than rectify the error, the number one sales professional, now a sales manager, gets fired because they weren't good at their job and they couldn't replicate their success in the other lackluster salespeople that had been hired. So rather than going out and hiring gifted salespeople that could actually sell and leaving that gifted sales professional in a place where he or she could really lead in their own personal effort, the company loses their number one sales professional, and they once again have to start looking for their next superstar in hopes that next hire would be the one. But it gets worse from there because here's what often happens. The number one sales professional lands a job at another financial services firm. And lo and behold, the process repeats itself all over again. Well, after once again rising to the top of sales, that sales professional is again asked to become a manager. Now, knowing what happened the last time, the sales professional has probably given a little thought to where did I mess up and where did I make some mistakes? And at this point, that individual now believes that he or she has learned enough from their past faux pas to be able to step into a management position and lead again in that role, again, without getting the skill or the talent necessary to effectively lead and train a team. So once again, history repeats itself. Sales drop. The sales professional, now the sales manager, is fired, and incompetence rules in the organization. Now, I don't want to just pick on the financial services industry, although I've seen it happen a lot there. But here's what I can tell you. It happens in industries other than finance. I recently consulted about 2 years ago with a commercial construction company, and I saw the Peter principle playing itself out once again. As employees that had been hired with the company demonstrated competency in an entry-level position, they got promoted. And oftentimes, they got put into a position where they lack skill, talent, or ability to effectively lead in that role and make the organization successful. The employer saw he had a gap in his employee pool and he needed to put somebody in that seat in the organization. So he picked someone that was good at something else and put them into a role that they were not well suited for. Now, to me, that is a level of incompetence in and of itself. But as a result of this business owner choosing to elevate people he liked and people that were successful doing what they loved to do and putting them in roles that they were not equipped and trained to do well, the company struggled. It cost them literally millions of dollars in business over a 2 to 3 year period. So what was going on? People were operating in positions in that organization that were outside what I call their unique area of giftedness. They were operating outside their strength zone. Now, as a result of that, it led to a very toxic, very stressful work environment. People were doing jobs they were not gifted and talented and trained to do. And as a result of that, we know from studies that when people aren't operating in their strength zone and they're doing things they can do but don't love to do, over time, they're going to get stressed out, they're going to burn out, and they're going to ultimately quit. But along the way, they're going to develop a negative attitude that, like a cancer, spreads through the organization. Now, it's also sad because stress, like success, is contagious. And when a stressful work environment begins to seize an organization, it can literally spread like a cancer or a virus and wreak havoc inside that company. Now, looking back at this construction company, there was no plan in place to grow the individual team members to prepare them so when they stepped into another role, they were ready to do so, nor was there any training available once they stepped into that role to continue to grow their competency. This employer was using no assessment tools to evaluate any role that he was considering an employee for. And as a result of that, he was putting good people in the wrong position because they were ill-equipped to serve in that role. Now, again, I don't want to just pick on construction or the financial services industry because I've seen the Peter principle play out in auto dealerships, in restaurants, in factories, in manufacturing facilities, in martial arts studios, and about every type of organization I can think of that I've looked at or studied over the years. What happens? The best people that are leading in an area of their strength, in an area of their giftedness, they end up becoming mediocre managers, managing mediocre people and leading to mediocre results for that company or that organization. Now, when we're talking about success, what I'm talking about up to this point is a recipe for disaster. But all too often, this happens over and over again in business after business after business. Why does it happen? It happens when people are put in positions where they've outpaced their expertise and their experience. So that begs the question, how do organizations, how does your company, your team, the group you're leading, how do you avoid the Peter principle sabotaging your success? Well, let's talk about that for just a minute. Because to prevent the Peter principle, organizations, companies, you who are leading a team need to focus on three often overlooked or ignored advancement best practices. So let me give those to you, and you might want to write them down. First, organizations should promote based upon skill, talent, ability, experience, and potential. Now, all too often, we mistake past performance for future potential. Past performance in one role may not show that they have potential to succeed in another role. That's where it's important to understand the skill set, the talent, the ability, and the experience of the individual. Because if the goal is to put the right person in the right position in the organization, any individual that's going to be considered needs to be assessed and evaluated in advance to determine if they're even capable of succeeding in this new enhanced role in the organization. Now, with many organizations, they desire to promote from within, and I get that, rewarding the people that have diligently been there. But if the plan is promotion from within, organizations need to promote based upon a comprehensive assessment of skills and looking at the individual potential for these higher level roles. Again, you can't just rely on past performance in a current role because it may not be relevant in that new role. Now, as the leadership team considers individuals for promotion, it's also important that they think about and evaluate that individual employee's ability to learn and adapt to new challenges, new situations, and new responsibilities. Now, you may say, John, why is that important? Because for an individual to succeed in any position long term, it is important, it is vital, it is mission critical for you leading an organization to make sure the individuals that you're putting in a position that role aligns with their strengths and their giftedness. Just because they can do a task or a job, it doesn't mean it's the best use of their talent or their ability. I met an amazing individual in an organization about 3 years ago that was an incredible sales professional. She was a phenomenal sales pro that had a proven track record of success. Do you know where the organization had that individual working? Not in sales, but in accounting, doing reconciliation bookkeeping. She absolutely hated her job and was looking secretly for another opportunity to leave this company where she could go and thrive in what she was good at doing. Now, think about that in your organization or your business. Just because you put a person in a role, if it doesn't allow them to focus on their strengths, it's going to be mentally and emotionally draining. It's going to lead to stress. It's going to eventually lead to burnout, and they're going to look at some point to exit your organization. Now, I am a huge proponent of assessments. I am DISC certified. I'm EQI certified in emotional intelligence. I'm a DISC certified consultant. I'm working on a couple of other assessment tools because I love using assessments because they are non-biased ways to be able to analyze and understand an individual's strengths, talents, abilities, stressors, and how they're going to respond and react under stress and distress. That's why I love assessments, because they can help an organization better understand the potential of an applicant or an employee. You know, I recently met with a venture capital company. I have a good friend that runs one, and he's working with a turnaround with an organization in the, how would I describe it? They are in the, let's just say, the food industry. And looking at this organization, which has got a great business model, but they're struggling to see success. I had the individual take every employee in the organization through a series of assessments. And when I sat down with this venture capitalist that's coaching this organization, I said, now, before you tell me what their job descriptions are, let me explain to you how these individuals live life, where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are, and what happens when they go under stress or distress. And as I began to walk him through each and every individual, his eyes began to get big, and he began to ferociously take notes. And then after I finished going through the 7 or 8 employees in this organization, I said, okay, now that you know who they are, tell me for each individual what job description they hold and what their role is in the company. And here's what we found. Of the 7 or 8 employees, only 2 were operating in areas of their giftedness. And as a result of that, you've got 5 people that are working in areas where they're competent and they can do the job at some level, or maybe they're really not competent in that area at all, but they're friendly, I'll do anything to help the company type people. And as a result of that, they were operating at a very low efficiency level. That's why I love assessment tools, but we were seeing the Peter Principle play out. These individuals were being promoted to areas in the business that they were incompetent of leading in. Now, again, I love assessments because they can avoid placing a gifted individual in the wrong seat in the organization. You don't want to put a gifted individual in a place where they're not skilled or equipped to serve, because you want that individual to contribute to the organizational success of that business at the highest level while they still are personally thriving in the business. That can only happen when they're operating in the area of their strengths and their giftedness for a significant portion of the day. Now, one of the things I talk about in my book, The Black Belt Secrets of Success, is this: successful organizations align skills, not people, to positions. This allows individuals to thrive in those roles. Rather than looking at the names of the people, we do assessments, and then we look at the results of the assessment, and we say, this particular assessment result can do this position. And then we align that with the name of the individual. So taking the individuals and any bias that may be there out of the equation lets us get a better result for businesses and organizations. And as a result of that, individuals can be promoted into positions where they are skilled and talented and gifted, and they've got the experience and the expertise to thrive in, and they're not being put in an area where they're going to struggle to see success. What am I talking about? It's the Pietro Principle in action. The Pietro Principle in action is positioning people where they can spend 80% of their day doing the 20% of things they're best at doing. Now, what I'm talking about right now, is a recipe for organizational success and an opportunity for stratospheric scaling of a business. Now, let me give you the second point. Rather than promoting individuals who are thriving in their specific role and giving them a job title or giving them a different responsibility, think about different ways to reward them. There's other financial incentives that you can use to promote and reward the people who are thriving in the area that they're really good at doing. Now, this could take the form of a pay raise. It could take the form of a bonus. It could take the form of some profit sharing, or there could be other perks that you as a business owner or team leader could implement so that you can incentivize that employee to continue to do well and be rewarded while you're leaving them in a place where they can make the most significant contribution to that organization's success. You know, remember what happened to the financial services organization that promoted their number 1 salesperson into management. It was a recipe for disaster. And then when that individual went to another organization, we saw the same process repeat. You don't want to make that same mistake in your business. So understand this: promotion is not the only way to reward results. Now, the third often overlooked area when it comes to avoiding the Peter Principle is this: every organization needs to, and I want to say need to, they must invest in the ongoing training and development of one of their most important assets, and that's their employees, that's their team members. We want to make sure that every individual in every role in an organization is getting ongoing training, mentorship, leadership training, personal growth and development, so that we're growing their opportunity to expand in the position they're in and potentially begin to equip them for new responsibilities in the future. Now, why is this important? We need to understand this. And Napoleon Hill talks about this going back years and years ago. Andrew Carnegie, one of the most brilliant men of the 19th and 20th century when it came to creating successful people, talks about this as well. Not a one of us, not a single one of us can outperform the quality of thinking that we bring to our lives every single day. We can't perform the quality of thinking we bring to business when we walk in the door and sit down to do the job we're tasked to do. And if we can't outperform the quality of our thinking, how do we improve in that area? It's through personal growth, it's through ongoing training, it's through mentoring, it's through development. That's why I tell organizations again and again and again, you've got to focus on the personal growth and the professional development of every member of your team. Why? Because it helps ensure that the quality of thinking of every individual improves. Because when the quality of thinking improves, here's what I can tell you, the quality of results immediately follows. Now, one of the organizations I started working with a few years back, they started cross-training employees in the roles and responsibilities of all of the other departments in their business. So everyone got an opportunity to gain a greater appreciation for each department's role, each team member's role as an organization in pulling all the individual component parts together to deliver the products and services that this organization created and sold in the marketplace. Now, this was valuable for that alone because every team member now understood and they appreciated each other team member's contribution to the overall development of the products and services that they offered. But this cross-training role, along with the personal development and professional development that they were implementing, allowed the employees to see something else. Whether or not there was another opportunity inside the organization that might fit their skill set that they could begin to train in and develop in, so that if an opportunity opened up, they were already preparing the individuals that could one day take the place of a team member that may retire or move on or for whatever reason no longer be involved in the business. This created an incredible dynamic in the organization of everybody leaning in and understanding how each part contributed to the whole, but also finding areas where they enjoyed learning something new and thinking, maybe I need to learn a little bit more about that and I could help more in that area. And all of a sudden, again, strengths, talents, abilities were all being aligned with future positional promotion. Now, think about what happened as a result of this. We saw some realignments in personnel within the organization. Some people that were doing some roles said, I think I could do better in that role. And other people that were doing roles said, I like what I'm doing, but I really love what they're doing. And as those internal shifts took place, it further aligned the strengths of the individuals with the responsibilities of the roles that they were leading in. And at the end of the day, what did it do? It improved the outcomes for the entire organization. So those are the three things that I would really focus on to avoid the Peter Principle showing up in your business. But let me share with you two additional things that I would also encourage you to consider to avoid the Peter Principle in advancement practices, and that is open communication and transparency. Now, these are important. Let me explain why. Employers need to foster a culture of open communication and honest, candid feedback. We want to create an atmosphere where employees feel comfortable sharing their thoughts and their concerns about any possible promotion, as well as what's going on in their current role. If they're going to be asked to take on a new role or a new responsibility, we want them to feel comfortable sharing their thoughts, their fears, their concerns, and giving honest feedback and having a dialogue to identify whether it's just a fear of the unknown or maybe they're not ready and prepared to step in to that new role. Now, this open communication and feedback needs to continue in an ongoing part of the culture of a business in the roles people are currently in and any opportunities for advancement in the future. Now, employee performance, as we all know, is a must, and we've got to give good employee performance reviews so that we're regularly monitoring and assessing how every team member is doing on the job. Employee performance assessments are good because it can help you as an employer identify if benchmarks are being met or if benchmarks are being missed. And if they're being missed, we can dig a little deeper to find out why. Now, one of the ways an employer can help an employee learn and grow and improve is to provide regular, constructive feedback, as well as being listening actively and openly to the employee's thoughts or concerns. Remember, those closest to the problem oftentimes have the best ideas to solve the problem. And when we engage in open, honest communication and we're giving regular constructive feedback of what we see and how an employee or a team member could do better in their current role or prepare for a future role, as we actively listen to their thoughts, their observations, and their insights, we may discover there's something we've overlooked or missed that could allow us to up-level what we're currently doing. Because when a culture of open and honest communication exists, every single member of the team has the opportunity to be heard, to be valued, and to be appreciated. Now, lastly, and I'm going to close with this. When an organization is thinking about promoting an individual to a new position, it is essential, hear me, it is essential to have an open dialogue about what is expected in this new role. And you've got to give that employee some time to consider whether or not they are truly suited for this role. So if you're going to talk to an employee and offer them a new position, you need to say, these are the expectations of this new role in the company. Here's why we are considering you for this role. Here are the gifts, the talents, the abilities, the experience, and the other things we've seen you do that we believe make you suited for this role. Now, that's going to require upfront that you as a team member, you as a leader, you as an employer, perform critical assessments of the individual in advance. But it also has to allow for candid feedback, where the employee may not yet see himself or herself in that role, and there needs to be some coaching to help them feel confident to step into that role. Or they may feel that they don't want that role and they don't want to step into a management or a leadership position. So it is important in this dialogue and in this assessment that both parties get a chance to assess. The employer assesses the employee. The employee assesses the role, and both of you have to agree that this is the right step for that individual. Otherwise, it's probably not going to work. Remember, an employee should not be forced into taking a new role or a new position, especially if they don't feel qualified or simply don't want to accept the role. You know, if that sales professional at the financial services firm had simply said, I love being a salesman, but I'm not comfortable leading people, that individual could have continued to lead in that sales position in that organization. Pay attention to that. Trust your employees to know when they're ready to step in to a new role. Because if either party has a hesitation, has a concern, there's often a subconscious signal that the timing may not yet be right, or one party may not feel that they are qualified or ready to step into that role. So when it comes to promotions, it's okay for an employee to say no. If an employee hears of a position that's available and they apply and they're not the best person for the job, it's okay for you as an employer to say no. You want the right people in the right positions that are gifted, talented, and suited to thrive in that position so the organization can see success. Now, I can tell you personally in my own life, I've done this several times. Over the years that I've been involved in business, I've been an employee, I've been a consultant, I've been a coach, I've been a trainer in a variety of different roles, there have been times that I have declined promotions. There have been times I've been offered some very attractive job opportunities that I said no to. There have been times I've asked to step into an organization in a consulting or a coaching or a training role that I declined because I didn't feel it was the best use of my time, my talent, or my ability, or I didn't feel like I was going to be able to deliver the results that they wanted, and I wasn't the right fit for the job. So, for the good of the organization that was reaching out to me, as well as my own welfare and my own well being, I thanked them for the consideration, but I passed on the opportunity. Why? Because if I didn't believe I could thrive in that role, I knew that the organization would not thrive having me in that role. So, as I wrap up the insights of today's podcast, you may be asking yourself how you, as an individual, avoid the Peter Principle, sabotaging your own success and your own well being. Well, let me quickly share four thoughts, and then I want to bring this lesson to a close. First, I want to borrow a phrase from Aristotle: know thyself. Again, I'm a huge fan of assessments because they can allow us to get an unbiased look at our strengths, our weaknesses, our talents, and our abilities. So if you've not had an opportunity to go through some assessments to understand who you are and how you live life, feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to share with you some of the assessment tools that we use here at Black Belt Leadership. Now, secondly, and I want to borrow a phrase for this second point from the legendary basketball coach John Wooden. Here's what he said: when opportunity knocks, it's too late to prepare. So to avoid the Peter Principle in your own life, you've got to commit to daily growth. Now, daily growth is going to put you on a trajectory of perpetual learning. And by doing that, it's going to allow you to become a better version of who you are and what you're capable of doing every single day. Remember, successful people do daily what unsuccessful people do sometimes or not at all. I talk about that in my book, Black Belt Secrets of Success. Now, the third tip, I want to borrow a phrase from Jordan Peterson. And I love this phrase that he says: get comfortable being uncomfortable. If we want to grow, we want to expand, we want to step into new roles and new opportunities, understand this: we've got to embrace the challenges that we face and the unfamiliar situations that life brings our way. The status quo, our habits, want to keep us in a comfortable place where we're not stretching, learning, and growing, and that's a recipe for disaster. Remember, Ray Kroc famously said, as long as we're green, we're growing, but once we're ripe, we start to rot. So we've got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because it's in that uncomfortable place in life where growth happens. When we are offered an opportunity to step into a new role and we see a challenge there, step back and be willing to be uncomfortable. If you have the skill, the talent, and the ability, and you need to grow into that role, take it as an opportunity. See it as an opportunity to grow, as an opportunity to become resilient, and don't step back from the challenges and unfamiliar situations or avoid them. Otherwise, you're never going to learn the lessons life is going to teach you. Because when we get comfortable being uncomfortable, this is how you and I get an opportunity to learn new things, to improve our skills, to gain competency, and to rise to our full potential. Now, the fourth and last thing is a very simple one, and it's a very simple quote I want to give you from myself. It's okay to say no. Remember, you and I, we do our very best when we operate in our strength zone. Now, what is that? That's the 20% of things that you and I are best at doing every single day of our lives. So when we focus our efforts and our activities on the areas where we excel and we find fulfillment and satisfaction, you and I are going to have the opportunity to maximize our potential and achieve better results. And I can tell you from experience, that's a much better place to be than being promoted to a place of incompetency. So now you know the Peter Principle, but more importantly, you know how to avoid it. I'm Dr. John Terry, the Black Belt Leader. Thanks for joining me, and have a great day.